Parker, imposter syndrome coach. And since we have an event coming up, I thought, what better way, right now it's all about content. And this is a great opportunity to not only create content and come before you and have this conversation, but seeing as that our primary platform is LinkedIn Live, that there are a number of people that could find tremendous value in this conversation with Vanessa. So Vanessa, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So imposter syndrome. This is a term that we have heard a little bit more in the past number of years, but I remember at least, and you can correct me, but at least 2 years ago that you were talking about imposter syndrome. Can you kind of give us an idea of, let's start from the beginning, about imposter syndrome?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, imposter syndrome is the feeling of not being able to internalize success, feeling like you don't belong. Again, internalizing success, meaning that you have the successes, you have the receipts for your successes, but when called to perform or someone asking you to do a job, you feel like you don't belong. So for me, that was in speaking. I had been speaking for maybe 6 years before I even knew what the imposter syndrome was. So I was talking to a girlfriend and I was telling her, hey, every time I present, I always plan for presenting. I always prepare for someone who's going to call my BS, who's going to stand up and say, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was sharing her and being very vulnerable. And she's like, girl, that's nothing. That's the imposter syndrome. There's so many people who have that. I have that. I had never heard that term before. So I went home and Googled that term and floodgates opened. I could not believe that there was a term to this thing. So imposter syndrome was coined, actually imposter phenomenon was coined by 2 psychologists, Dr. Imes and Dr. Clance, here in Georgia, actually, at Georgia State. And it was done in 1978, so not too long ago, but it is one of the most popular papers that are out because, as you said, imposter syndrome is like a buzzword right now. So many people are talking about it.
Right.
Michelle Obama in her book Becoming, imposter syndrome was all over that book.
And that is the former first lady who so many of us still adore and has just her transparency, which is what I said. I did a post today, and that is one of the things that I appreciate about you is that you are so transparent, and I see it as a great gift that it's you as the person who is on that platform, like as an imposter syndrome coach, and just sharing, because that's what it takes, right? For us to break down this facade that, everyone else it's just me.
Yes, I believe imposter syndrome thrives in isolation.
Ooh,
You feel like you're by yourself. I'm dealing with this by myself. But
right.
when you begin to talk, you realize you are not alone. Statistics say 70% of Americans will experience imposter syndrome in their lifetime. I bet it's even more than that.
Okay. That is so true. And you've had an opportunity to even speak. I know that earlier this year, before all of this has happened, that even just doing workshops with General Assembly and just even seeing some of the women who have been in their careers for decades, Emmy nominated, people, talented people trying to figure out like, what is this thing that is holding me back? And there's something that you said that I found that was kind of like this light bulb, is that you said something along the lines of that you don't believe that imposter syndrome, like you can get rid of it, but that there are ways to mitigate it. Can you kind of speak to that for those of you who are watching? Thank you so much. It's going to be a quick conversation just with Vanessa Parker, who she's been doing work in the space as a speaker, also working with women in small businesses, co-founder of Divas in Defense. And to have her on tonight, I was like, Vanessa, she made time for us. So feel free to go ahead and leave your comments below if you are watching the replay. We want to know, have you heard about imposter syndrome, or what are some of the ways that you're handling it? So yes, Vanessa, go ahead and speak to that for us.
Yes, I do not think that imposter syndrome will ever go away. I think that you can learn triggers. So you can, and what we'll talk about in our session, triggers that you can identify and then how to combat them. Even for me, even though I coach people on it, I've been talking about it for years. I get imposter syndrome still. I've been writing a book about it for 3 years. And one of the main reasons it's taken me so long is because I have to keep reminding myself that someone needs this book. Because as I'm writing, I'm saying to myself, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Who wants to hear from me? I mean, those are things and voices that you hear in your head, but there are ways to combat it. So I don't think it ever truly goes away.
Okay. Now, what are some of the ways, like we are broadcasting here on LinkedIn Live, and I've seen some people just talking about how they deal with it. There was this young woman that she moderated even a panel tonight, and even going into it, that just supporting and applauding her and seeing that in the esports realm, that you don't see a lot of women that are in there. It's a male dominated industry right now. Hopefully that will change in the future. But what are some of the ways that people can find support in, if they realize, wait, this might be something that I'm dealing with?
Well, one, talk about it is the first thing. My goal is to create imposter syndrome chats where you can go into your workplace or your girlfriend and talk about it, because I do believe that it does live in isolation. And being able to talk about it, you realize, oh, this is something that's all in my head, and it's really not true. So one is the support is finding other people who have dealt with imposter syndrome. The other thing is do some research. There's plenty of books out there now on imposter syndrome. Make sure I provide a list. I don't know if I can provide the list in the comments, but provide a list of some of the books. But there are some books and do some.
They can come next week.
They can come next week. Well, I'll provide a list there.
Right.
The other thing too is writing down your successes. I really think that a lot of imposter syndrome is in your head. So you've got to get out of your head. So a lot of the work you need to do is to get out of your head space. So it's writing down some successes so that if you ever feel that trigger of imposter syndrome, you can quickly refer back to the list and say, no, I'm a badass. No, I'm good at this. I'm good at this. I did this thing. Big or small, it's just to remind yourself that you are good, and that you deserve to be where you are and you have a seat at the table.
Awesome. I love that last part. That seat at the table is important and critical, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out as we move into this virtual space that we're in right now, and how people can deal with that. And I think that's part of, even in us next week with Get Camera Confident, the idea that we're not necessarily physically in person with folks, but there are still ways that you can convey your thoughts, your expertise, and your talents, and just doing that virtually. And that's one of the reasons. So I just want to say thank you again for just jumping on tonight to talk about this, because I felt that it was important for you to be the first one. So you'll be day one for us for those that are coming on so often. It's like, okay, I need the gear and I need the makeup and I need the clothes, but it's also like, where's your head? Where's your heart? And getting that straight so that you can show up on camera the way that you want to.
Yes. I mean, because the first thing when people say go on camera, right? The first thing you say is, who wants to hear from me? Why should I go live? No one's going to listen to me. No one wants my content. And that's not true.
Right. That's so true. So we're going to close it out because it's later in the day or the night, I should say, over here. But I do want to close out with you. If there are any books or any podcasts or anything that you could recommend to folks, everyone else, we want to see you next week at Get Camera Confident. Vanessa is our day one speaker, going to be talking to us about imposter syndrome. So getting our head in the game to show up on camera. And if you're watching the replay, thank you again. And Vanessa, what's one? You don't have to list all of them, but a resource.
One of the most popular ones is The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women.
Okay.
Valerie Young, I believe her name. She's been talking about imposter syndrome for almost 15 years. So
Okay.
once her book is good, there's another one. Also Becoming. Even though the whole thing's not imposter syndrome, but to hear from our former first lady to talk about it. And
Right.
Shonda Rhimes has a book called The Year of Yes.
Okay.
And she dives into imposter syndrome a lot. We know her as a successful writer, a successful director, a successful woman, but even to this day, you know, in her writing, she talks about dealing with imposter syndrome. So those are 3 really good books.
Okay, awesome. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Vanessa, for joining us and showing up tonight. And we look forward to seeing you next week at Get Camera Confident. So thank you so much for watching the replay, y'all.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.